This screencast is about constant data members. So these are just either public or private data members of a class that are constant. And you might provide these for yourself for implementation, or they might be data members that you provide people using your class. So let's copy time 8 to time 9. And just for a quick review, let's remember how we declare constant objects. Let me get rid of this. So if you'll remember, we can declare a constant object like this, and then we can just print out its value. Let me compile this just like that. So based on this declaration here, we might be tempted to do something similar in the class construct, and you'll see that that doesn't work quite the way that it should. So what I'm going to do is in this public section, I'm going to declare some data members that I will make constant. And what I'll do is I'll just create maybe maximum number of hours, maximum number of minutes, and whether this should be 60 minutes or 24 hours or 23 hours and 59 minutes. I'm not really worried about that. So here's the maximum number of hours, and we'll just say it's 24, and the maximum number of minutes. And again, we're providing these for someone who might be using this class, but we could also use these constants in our implementations of our data validity checks, whatever we wanted to do. Let's get rid of this. So let's just compile this. This is going to be a mistake. And what it's telling me here is that what I need to do is I need to make these public constants static. And to do that, all I have to do is add the static keyword here. And now this is going to compile and be just fine. So what's going on here, the static keyword, and you can look this up online, but essentially what this is doing is this is ensuring that we keep only one copy of the constants 24 and 60. So regardless of how many time objects we create, they will all refer back to this single value. I'm not entirely sure why the compiler doesn't automatically do this for you, but it doesn't, at least not this version of the compiler. So when declaring constant data members, you have to also include the static. Now to use these, we simply say we use the class, the scoping operator, and then the name of the public data member. So this should print 60 and then, this should print 24 and then 60. So if I compile this, that's what we get. We might also, so this works great for, this works great for simple things, but we might also want to declare important times like noon or midnight or something like that if we're implementing this time class. So following this same declaration, I would be tempted to write time const time, and then the name of a some sort of a time that I want to be a constant, and the easiest thing here is just noon. So how do we initialize this? Well, we might be tempted to just pass values to the constructor, just like this. So let's try this. Now this is not going to work, and what it tells me is that I've got some sort of a syntax error here, and it's not really clear how I write this declaration. Maybe I would be tempted to do something like this. And again, it's telling me that I've got an invalid initialization of a static member. And the important part is it's telling me that it's a non-integral type. Okay? So for this compiler, what this means is that any kind of a class object, I can't initialize it within the scope of the class construct. So the way that you do this is you actually have to provide the initialization outside of the scope of the class. So for any class object, like a time object or a date object, so the basic types, integers, doubles, you can initialize them just like this. But for these so-called non-integral types or class objects, the way that you do this is you declare it, but you provide the initialization outside the scope of the class. So the way that I do that is I write time, noon, and then here is actually where I pass the initializing values to the constructor. So just to go back over this, for a class object, any kind of a class object that you want to make a constant, in this case a public constant, you provide the declaration in the class construct, and then you initialize it outside the scope of the class construct using something like that. So now hopefully this will compile. It does. And so now to use this constant, we do exactly the same thing. And this should print. So the whole thing should print 2460, and then we should see noon printed in our time format that and that's what we get. So that's how you declare constants for inside constant data members, and these can be either public or private, and the simple types, and then also for class objects.